weeks, Bangladesh has been rocked by unprecedented violence, with attacks against Hindus and religious minorities escalating in alarming fashion. But who's behind the turmoil? Is China playing a more sinister role in the persecution of Hindus than we see? In this video, we'll dive into how China's political maneuvering and its engagement with Islamist forces in Bangladesh could be fueling this crisis, and what it means for India, Bangladesh, and the region at large. Bangladesh, once a symbol of rapid economic growth and political stability in South Asia, is now facing a devastating political crisis. Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina's sudden resignation and her flight to India has triggered a wave of unrest. What started as a student protest over civil service quotas has now exploded into nationwide clashes, leaving hundreds dead and the nation in turmoil. But amidst the violence, one question remains. Why are Hindus in Bangladesh bearing the brunt of this political upheaval? Reports from across Bangladesh tell a grim story. Arson, looting, and attacks on religious sites. The violence against Hindus has reached levels unseen in years, with Hindu temples destroyed, homes being torched, and people targeted simply for their faith. Activists like Chinmoy Krishna Prabhu, who led protests against the atrocities, were arrested by the Bangladeshi authorities. As Bangladesh's political landscape shifts rapidly, China has quietly inserted itself into the situation. Unlike India, which has a historical relationship with the Awami League, China doesn't pick sides. They engage with whoever is in power. And right now that means courting Islamist groups like Jamaat-e-Islami and Hifazat-e-Islam, both of whom have significant influence in the ongoing protests and violence. In fact, on November 25th, the Chinese embassy in Dhaka hosted a reception with leaders of these parties, including Jamaat-e-Islami's Shafiqur Rahman. The Chinese ambassador to Bangladesh, Yao Wen, praised the steadfast China-Bangladesh relationship, signaling a deep alignment with these radical factions. China's support to Islamic political forces in Bangladesh raises serious questions. These parties, which have long been involved in anti-Hindu rhetoric, are now key players in the country's changing political narrative. By strengthening ties with such groups, China could be subtly orchestrating a shift in Bangladesh's foreign and domestic policies. This would allow China to expand its influence in the region, especially as India's ties with Bangladesh are strained, primarily due to India's backing of Hasina's government. For China, engaging with Bangladesh's Islamist forces makes perfect sense. With the Awami League losing power, China seeks to maintain its leverage by forging relations with all the factions. This strategy is in stark contrast to India's policy, which has focused exclusively on the Awami League for years. As India distances itself from Bangladesh's interim government and the growing instability, China's ability to engage with a wide range of political groups gives it a unique edge in the region. For India, the situation remains dire. As Bangladesh's political crisis deepens, New Delhi finds itself on the defensive. The rise of Islamist groups and the growing anti-Hindu violence threatens not only Bangladesh's internal stability but also India's security interests. As China continues to strengthen its ties with Bangladesh's new power brokers, India risks losing its long-standing influence in the region. By supporting Islamist forces, Beijing is potentially fueling the violence against Hindus while positioning itself as a dominant player in the region. Meanwhile, India's silence and limited outreach to the opposition forces leave it vulnerable. What does this mean for the region? Will China's involvement shift the balance of power in South Asia? Only time will tell. Bureau Report, India Today Global.